Some songs become hits, others become history. But between 1970 and 1980, a handful of R&B records did something almost impossible. They changed the way soul music sounded, the way artists recorded, and the way generations remembered their lives. Behind every unforgettable melody was a story filled with heartbreak, determination, unexpected studio moments, and sometimes pure luck. Tonight, we're uncovering 10 songs whose impact still echoes through every family reunion, every slow dance, every cookout, and every sample used by today's biggest artists. Number 10, Best of My Love, The Emotions, 1977. Before disco completely took over American dance floors, three sisters from Chicago reminded the world that genuine soul could still make people dance without losing its heart. When The Emotions released Best of My Love in June 1977, they weren't simply chasing another hit. They were stepping into a new chapter under the guidance of one of music's greatest creative forces, Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire. White produced the song alongside Charles Stepney, blending lush harmonies, irresistible grooves, and polished arrangements into a record that felt joyful from the very first note. The story behind the recording is just as remarkable. Maurice White believed the sisters possessed one of the finest vocal blends in soul music, but wanted a song that could introduce them to a broader audience. Songwriters Al McKay and Allee Willis crafted an uplifting anthem celebrating love and confidence rather than heartbreak. That positive message resonated instantly. Released on Columbia Records, the single climbed to No. 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and No. 1 on the Hot Soul Singles chart, becoming the group's signature hit and one of the defining records of 1977. Listen closely, and you'll hear why the record still sounds fresh nearly 50 years later. The rhythm guitar creates a light, bouncing pulse, while the bass quietly anchors every measure. Then the sisters' harmonies arrive, not competing with one another, but moving together with remarkable precision. Maurice White deliberately left space in the arrangement, allowing each vocal phrase to breathe naturally. That balance between elegance and groove became a blueprint that countless R&B and pop producers would study for decades. Its influence didn't stop in the 70s. Best of My Love has appeared in films, television shows, commercials, and playlists celebrating the golden age of soul. Artists across multiple genres have cited The Emotions' harmonies as a benchmark for vocal excellence, while the record itself remains a staple at weddings, reunions, and celebrations around the world. It proved that optimism could be just as powerful as heartbreak in soul music. But if this song celebrated the joy of love, our next selection transformed personal vulnerability into one of the greatest soul ballads ever recorded. Number 9. Love, T.K.O. Teddy Pendergrass, 1980. By 1980, Teddy Pendergrass had already earned a reputation as one of the most commanding voices in soul music. His concerts were legendary. Women filled arenas dressed in red, throwing roses onto the stage, while Teddy stood alone beneath a spotlight, delivering love songs with unmatched intensity. But when Love, T.K.O. arrived in the summer of 1980, listeners heard something different. Instead of the confident seducer they had come to expect, they heard a man admitting that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. That honesty transformed the record into one of the greatest heartbreak songs ever recorded. The song wasn't originally written with Teddy in mind. It was composed by legendary songwriter Cecil Womack, together with Gip Noble Jr., using boxing as the perfect metaphor for a relationship that had simply gone too many rounds. Rather than pleading for another chance, the lyrics describe someone accepting defeat with dignity. Released on Philadelphia International Records as part of Teddy's TP album, Love T.K.O. climbed into the top 10 of Billboard's R&B chart, becoming one of his signature recordings and cementing his place among soul music's greatest interpreters of emotion. Listen carefully to the production, and you'll understand why the song still feels timeless. Producer Dexter Wansel avoided dramatic orchestration, allowing Teddy's rich baritone to carry nearly every emotional moment. The gentle electric piano, restrained rhythm guitar, and warm bass line create an atmosphere that feels almost conversational. Teddy rarely forces a note. Instead, he lets the pauses speak just as loudly as the lyrics themselves. Every breath sounds intentional. Every phrase feels lived rather than performed, making listeners believe they are hearing a real conversation after love has fallen apart.
Cause you lose all sense of
The influence of Love T.K.O. has stretched far beyond its original release. The song has been covered by artists including Regina Belle and Hall & Oates, while countless hip-hop and R&B producers have sampled its unmistakable groove. Even decades later, it remains a staple of quiet storm radio, late-night playlists, and collections celebrating classic soul. More importantly, it proved that vulnerability could be just as powerful as confidence. Teddy Pendergrass didn't need to raise his voice to break your heart. He only needed to tell the truth. But if Teddy taught us how to accept the end of love, the next artist reminded the world that sometimes the greatest strength comes from simply believing in one another.
oh, sometimes I just feel like I want to sing.
Number 8. Lean on Me, Bill Withers, 1972. Not every classic soul song begins inside $1 million recording studio. Sometimes, it starts with a memory. Before Bill Withers became one of the most respected singer-songwriters in America, he worked ordinary jobs, including assembling aircraft parts, while writing songs in his spare time. Then, in 1972, he reached back into his childhood in the small coal mining town of Slab Fork, West Virginia, remembering neighbors who survived difficult times simply by helping one another. Those memories became Lean on Me, a song whose message proved so universal that it would outlive nearly every trend that followed. Released as the lead single from his album Still Bill, Lean on Me was produced by Booker T. Jones and issued on Sussex Records. The song quickly climbed to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and also topped the Hot Soul Singles chart, making it one of the rare records to dominate both pop and R&B audiences at the same time. Bill Withers insisted on keeping the arrangement remarkably simple. Rather than hiding behind elaborate production, he trusted the power of honest lyrics, a steady groove, and a melody that sounded as if it had always existed.
When you need a hand, we are.
Listen carefully to the opening. There is no dramatic orchestral introduction, no flashy instrumental solo trying to steal the spotlight. Instead, the piano gently invites you into the song before Withers delivers one of the most recognizable opening lines in music history. His voice isn't polished to perfection, it feels human. That's exactly what makes the performance unforgettable. Every pause, every breath, every slight crack in his voice reminds listeners that these words came from real experiences, not manufactured emotion. As the backing vocals gradually enter, they don't overpower him. They sound like neighbors joining together, reinforcing the song's central message of community and support. More than 50 years later, Lean on Me remains one of the most frequently performed songs in schools, churches, benefit concerts, graduations, and moments of national healing. It has been covered by dozens of artists, including Club Nouveau, whose 1987 version also reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, introducing the song to an entirely new generation. Yet many listeners still return to Bill Withers' original because of its warmth, sincerity, and timeless honesty. Few songs have united people across race, age, and culture the way Lean on Me continues to do. But if Bill Withers reminded the world to stand together, the next artist took soul music somewhere no one had ever imagined, blending funk, innovation, and fearless creativity into a masterpiece that changed popular music forever. Number 7. Superstition, Stevie Wonder, 1972. Some songs become classics because of incredible vocals, others because of unforgettable lyrics. But every once in a generation, a record arrives with a groove so powerful that the first few notes instantly reveal its identity. That was exactly what happened when Stevie Wonder released Superstition in October 1972. At just 22 years old, Stevie wasn't simply making another hit. He was proving that he could write, arrange, produce, and perform at a level few artists had ever reached. In doing so, he launched what many music historians call the greatest creative run in R&B history.
Wash your face and
Ironically, Superstition almost belonged to someone else. During the recording sessions for Talking Book, British guitarist Jeff Beck visited Stevie Wonder at Electric Lady Studios in New York. While experimenting together, Beck played the drums as Stevie sat behind the Hohner clavinet, searching for a new groove. Within minutes, Stevie created the iconic clavinet riff that would define the song. The original plan was for Jeff Beck to record and release it first. But after hearing the finished demo, Berry Gordy and Motown executives immediately recognized they were listening to something extraordinary. Motown rushed Stevie's version to radio before Beck could release his own, a decision that forever changed the song's history. The production remains astonishing even today. Stevie didn't rely on a full band to build the record's energy. He played nearly every instrument himself, layering drums, clavinet, bass, and percussion with remarkable precision. The clavinet doesn't simply accompany the rhythm, it becomes the rhythm, punching through the speakers with sharp, syncopated bursts that sound as fresh today as they did in 1972. Every drum fill, every horn stab, and every vocal phrase feels perfectly placed. Rather than overcrowding the mix, Stevie allowed each instrument room to breathe, creating a groove that musicians still study decades later. The lyrics warned against blind belief and superstition, but it was the irresistible rhythm that carried the message into music history. The world responded immediately. Superstition reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and #1 on the Billboard Best-Selling Soul Singles chart, becoming Stevie Wonder's biggest hit at that point and helping Talking Book establish him as one of the most innovative artists of his generation. The song has since been covered by hundreds of performers, from rock bands and jazz musicians to funk ensembles, and its unmistakable riff continues to appear in films, commercials, television shows, and live performances around the globe. More than 50 years later, it still sounds futuristic, a testament to Stevie Wonder's fearless creativity and unmatched musicianship. But if Stevie Wonder redefined what one artist could accomplish inside the recording studio, the next group proved that soul music could also become a rallying cry for hope, unity, and a better world. Number 6. Love Train, The O'Jays, 1972. In the early 1970s, America was still wrestling with division. The Vietnam War dominated headlines. The civil rights movement had reshaped the nation, and people everywhere were searching for reasons to believe that a better future was possible. Then three voices from Canton, Ohio, climbed aboard a musical journey that would become one of the greatest unity anthems ever recorded. When the OJs released Love Train at the end of 1972, they weren't just singing about love, they were inviting the entire world to ride together. The song came from one of soul music's most legendary songwriting teams, Kenneth Gamble and Leon Huff, the architects of the Philadelphia soul sound. Recording at the famous Sigma Sound Studios in Philadelphia, they envisioned something bigger than another radio hit. Gamble deliberately wrote lyrics mentioning countries from around the world, encouraging listeners to imagine a future where borders mattered less than humanity itself. Released on Philadelphia International Records, Love Train quickly gathered momentum, reaching #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in March 1973, while also topping the Billboard R&B singles chart. It became the first Philadelphia International release to reach the top of the pop charts, helping establish the label as one of the most influential forces in soul music. The very first beat, you can hear why the record refuses to age. Earl Young's crisp drumming drives the rhythm forward with the steady confidence of an actual locomotive, while Ronnie Baker's bass line provides the smooth foundation underneath shimmering strings and bright horns. The OJs never overpower the arrangement. Instead, Eddie Levert's passionate lead vocal is perfectly balanced by Walter Williams and William Powell, creating harmonies that feel like thousands of voices singing together. As each chorus grows stronger, the record builds the same way a train gathers speed. Slowly at first, then impossible to stop. It's an arrangement that feels uplifting without ever becoming sentimental. More than 50 years later, Love Train remains one of the defining songs of hope in popular music. It has been performed at global celebrations, sporting events, charity concerts, and international broadcasts, while countless artists have covered or sampled its unforgettable melody. Even today, its message feels remarkably current, reminding listeners that great soul music doesn't simply entertain, it inspires. The genius of Gamble and Huff wasn't just writing a catchy chorus, it was creating a song whose message could travel across generations as effortlessly as the train it celebrates. But if Love Train encouraged the world to come together, our next artist discovered that sometimes the most unforgettable songs are born from the deepest personal emotions imaginable. Transition. Number 5. Ain't No Stopping Us Now. McFadden and Whitehead, 1979.
A long, long way to go. And
Sometimes the greatest victory songs aren't written after success. They're written while fighting to achieve it. By the late 1970s, Gene McFadden and John Whitehead had spent nearly a decade behind the scenes at Philadelphia International Records. They had written hit songs for artists like Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, the OJs, and Archie Bell and the Drells, helping shape the legendary Philadelphia soul sound. Yet, despite creating hits for everyone else, they still hadn't earned their own moment in the spotlight. In 1979, they decided it was finally their turn, and the result became one of the greatest motivational anthems in music history. Ain't No Stopping Us Now. The song wasn't just another dance record, it reflected their real-life struggle. For years, the duo had pushed to become recording artists, but their label viewed them primarily as songwriters and producers. Rather than accept that limitation, they poured their frustration, ambition, and determination into one unforgettable groove. Released on Philadelphia International Records, the single exploded onto radio, climbing to no. 1 on the Billboard R&B chart and reaching no. 113 on the Billboard Hot 100. More importantly, it became an anthem of perseverance during a period when America was emerging from economic uncertainty, and many African Americans saw the song as a celebration of progress, resilience, and hope.
Trying to make it, they only push you aside.
From the opening piano chords, the record radiates confidence. Producer Dexter Wansel and the legendary MFSB musicians crafted an arrangement built around shimmering strings, bright horns, a driving bass line, and a rhythm section that never loses momentum. McFadden and Whitehead don't overpower the music, they glide through it with conviction, delivering every lyric like a personal testimony. As the chorus arrives, it transforms from a catchy hook into a declaration that audiences instinctively wanted to sing together. The groove feels effortless, but every instrument is carefully layered, creating one of the smoothest productions ever recorded during the Philadelphia soul era. More than 4 decades later, Ain't No Stopping Us Now remains one of the most recognizable songs ever released by Philadelphia International Records. It has echoed through championship celebrations, graduation ceremonies, political campaigns, community events, and television broadcasts around the world. The song has been sampled by hip-hop artists, covered by countless performers, and affectionately earned the nickname, the Black National Anthem, in many communities because of its message of perseverance and collective triumph. Few records have inspired generations quite like this one. It proved that persistence can eventually become victory, and that sometimes the people working quietly behind the scenes are destined to create history themselves. But if McFadden and Whitehead gave the world its ultimate anthem of determination, our next selection took listeners somewhere completely different, proving that one unforgettable groove could change the direction of popular music forever.
There's been so many things.
Number 4. Off the Wall, Michael Jackson, 1979. 1979, the world knew Michael Jackson as the gifted child who had dazzled audiences with the Jackson 5. But behind the scenes, Michael was determined to prove he was much more than a former child star. He wanted artistic freedom. He wanted to be taken seriously. Most of all, he wanted a sound that belonged entirely to him. That opportunity arrived when he partnered with legendary producer Quincy Jones for the album Off the Wall. Among its standout tracks was the title song, Off the Wall, a record that captured the excitement of leaving your worries behind and stepping onto the dance floor. It wasn't just another disco hit, it was the sound of Michael Jackson reinventing himself before the world. The journey to that moment began on the set of the film The Wiz, where Michael first met Quincy Jones. Their creative chemistry was immediate. Quincy assembled some of the finest musicians and songwriters in the business, including Rod Temperton, who wrote Off the Wall. Temperton's lyrics encouraged listeners to escape the pressures of everyday life and embrace joy without apology. Released on Epic Records in February 1980 as the album's third single, the song climbed to number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 5 on the Billboard R&B singles chart, helping the Off the Wall album become the first solo album to generate 4 top 10 pop hits in the United States. What makes the recording extraordinary is its precision. Listen to the opening percussion, and you'll immediately hear Quincy Jones's obsession with detail. Every drum hit, every bass note from Louis Johnson, and every shimmering horn arrangement serves a purpose. Michael's vocal performance is equally remarkable. He doesn't simply sing the melody, he dances around it with playful ad-libs, effortless falsetto, and rhythmic phrasing that would soon become his trademark. His famous vocal hiccups and spontaneous exclamations weren't gimmicks. They were expressions of pure excitement, making the performance feel alive every single time it plays. Today, Off the Wall is recognized as one of the defining recordings that bridged the gap between 1970s soul, disco, and the modern pop era. The album itself has sold more than 20 million copies worldwide, while the song continues to fill dance floors more than 4 decades later. Music historians often point to Off the Wall as the moment Michael Jackson transformed from a successful young performer into a global superstar poised to create Thriller. Without this record, the history of pop and R&B might have unfolded very differently. It proved that reinvention, when paired with extraordinary talent, can change an artist's destiny forever. But if Michael Jackson taught the world how to celebrate freedom on the dance floor, our next selection reminded everyone that true love could be captured in just a few unforgettable minutes and become one of the greatest ballads ever recorded. Number 3. 3 Times a Lady, Commodores, 1978. Before Lionel Richie became one of the biggest solo stars in the world, he was already proving he possessed a rare gift for writing songs that could touch millions of hearts. In 1978, the Commodores were known for their hard-hitting funk records like Brick House and Too Hot to Trot. Nobody expected their next masterpiece to be a gentle piano ballad. In fact, some people inside Motown believed 3 Times a Lady was too soft for the group. But Lionel Richie believed the song had something special. He trusted his instincts, and that decision changed not only the band's career, it changed his own forever. The inspiration came from a deeply personal moment. During a family celebration honoring Lionel Richie's parents, his father stood before friends and relatives, looked at his wife, and described her as a lady. Not once, not twice, but 3 times a lady. The phrase immediately stayed with Lionel. He rushed home and transformed those heartfelt words into a melody that celebrated lifelong devotion rather than youthful romance. Originally, Richie considered giving the song to another artist because it sounded so different from the Commodores' usual style. But legendary Motown founder Berry Gordy insisted the Commodores should record it themselves, a decision that proved to be one of the smartest in Motown history. From the very first piano notes, the record feels intimate and sincere. Producer James Anthony Carmichael resisted the temptation to overcrowd the arrangement. Instead, he allowed Richie's warm vocal to remain front and center, supported by elegant strings, subtle rhythm guitar, and gentle orchestration that grows naturally with the emotion of the lyrics. Listen carefully to the way Lionel delivers each line. There's no unnecessary vocal acrobatics, no dramatic over-singing. Every phrase feels like a personal promise, making listeners believe every single word. That simplicity became the song's greatest strength, proving that emotional honesty often leaves the deepest impression. Released on Motown Records, 3 Times a Lady became the Commodores' first #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100, while also reaching the top of the adult contemporary chart and becoming a major international success. It earned the group an American Music Award and established Lionel Richie as one of the finest songwriters of his generation. Decades later, the song remains a favorite at weddings, anniversary celebrations, and romantic occasions around the world. More importantly, it marked the moment Lionel Richie showed the music industry he could write timeless ballads as effortlessly as he could write funk classics. That revelation would soon lead to one of the greatest solo careers in music history. But if 3 Times a Lady captured the beauty of lasting love, our next song became the soundtrack for millions of couples, proving that 2 legendary voices could create magic that time itself could never erase. Number 2. Endless Love, Diana Ross and Lionel Richie, 1981. Some love songs become popular. Others become timeless, but only a handful become so deeply woven into people's lives that they accompany first dances, wedding ceremonies, anniversaries, and memories across generations. Endless Love is one of those rare records. When Diana Ross and Lionel Richie stepped into the studio together in 1981, they weren't trying to create the biggest duet of all time. They were recording the theme song for Franco Zeffirelli's romantic film Endless Love. What happened next surprised everyone. The song became a cultural phenomenon that would define romance for decades. The collaboration almost seemed destined from the start. Diana Ross was already one of Motown's greatest icons, while Lionel Richie had just emerged as one of music's brightest songwriting talents with the Commodores. Richie personally wrote Endless Love, believing only Diana Ross possessed the elegance needed to bring the song to life. Recorded for Motown Records, the duet was produced by Lionel Richie alongside Motown veteran George Tobin. Upon its release, the single spent 9 consecutive weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, topped the Billboard R&B chart, and earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Song, eventually becoming Motown's biggest-selling single in U.S. history at the time. Listen closely, and you'll hear why the performance still feels extraordinary. The arrangement begins with delicate piano and soft strings, creating space before either singer utters a word. Diana Ross opens with remarkable grace, her voice carrying both confidence and vulnerability. Then Lionel enters, not competing with her, but complementing every phrase. Their voices move together like a conversation between two people completely lost in each other's world. As the orchestra gradually swells, the emotion builds naturally, never feeling forced. Producer George Tobin deliberately avoided excessive production, allowing the chemistry between Ross and Richie to remain the heart of the recording. That restraint is one of the reasons the song continues to resonate with listeners more than 4 decades later. The legacy of Endless Love is almost impossible to measure. It has been covered by artists including Luther Vandross and Mariah Carey, Kenny Rogers and Shania Twain, and countless performers around the world. Yet many critics and fans still consider the original untouchable. The song has appeared in films, television series, talent competitions, and wedding playlists across generations, remaining one of the most recognizable love songs ever recorded. For Lionel Richie, it marked the beginning of an extraordinary solo career. For Diana Ross, it added another unforgettable chapter to an already legendary legacy. Together, they created a duet that proved true musical chemistry cannot be manufactured. It simply happens. But as unforgettable as Endless Love became, one song from the 1970s still stands above them all. It wasn't just a hit, it became a movement, a celebration, and one of the most influential soul records ever created. Number 1. I'll Take You There, The Staple Singers, 1972.
No, lying to the races.
Some songs make you dance, some make you think. And then there are songs that seem to lift an entire generation. In 1972, the Staple Singers released I'll Take You There, a record that didn't need complicated lyrics or flashy production to leave its mark on history. Instead, it offered something people desperately needed during one of America's most uncertain decades: hope. As political tensions, economic struggles, and social change dominated everyday life, this joyful soul anthem reminded listeners that better days were still possible. More than 50 years later, it remains one of the most uplifting records ever recorded. The story behind the song is just as fascinating as the music itself. Produced by Al Bell, one of the architects of the legendary Stax Records sound, the record was built around a groove inspired by the reggae classic The Liquidator by the Harry J. All-Stars. Rather than copying the original, Bell slowed the rhythm, added Memphis soul, gospel harmonies, and the unmistakable voice of Mavis Staples. Bell intentionally kept the lyrics simple because he wanted listeners to imagine their own version of that place where peace, love, and happiness existed. Released in May 1972, the single became a massive success, reaching #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and #1 on the Billboard Best-Selling Soul Singles chart, becoming the biggest hit of the group's career. Listen closely, and you'll immediately understand why the groove feels so timeless. The song opens with one of the most recognizable bass lines in soul history, before the drums settle into an effortless pocket. Then Mavis Staples enters, not with explosive power, but with quiet confidence. Her rich, earthy voice feels less like a performance and more like an invitation. The call and response vocals between Mavis and the rest of the group draw directly from the black church tradition, creating an atmosphere of unity that few recordings have ever matched. Producer Al Bell wisely resisted overcrowding the arrangement. Every instrument has room to breathe, allowing the rhythm to carry the song's joyful spirit from beginning to end.
Oh, help me now.
The influence of I'll Take You There reaches far beyond the 1970s. It has been sampled by hip-hop producers, covered by artists including BB and CeCe Winans, Mavis Staples, and Kirk Franklin, and featured in countless films, television series, and documentaries celebrating American music. In 1999, the recording was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame, recognizing its lasting artistic and cultural importance. Rolling Stone has consistently ranked it among the greatest songs ever recorded, while generations of listeners continue to discover its message of hope and togetherness. Few records capture the spirit of soul music quite like this one. It isn't just about reaching a better place, it's about believing that, together, we can get there. And that's why I'll Take You There deserves its place at #1 on our countdown.
Help me out. I wanna love.